Hey, for all the authors that are listening out there, I wanted to share with you this great email that we received here at the Reading with Your Kids podcast from Dr. Linda Mubarak. She is a past guest and the author of Maxine's New Job. Here's the email. Dear Fatima and Jed, good news! Maxine's New Job has been nominated to receive the prestigious Henri Award at the 2018 Christian Literacy Awards for Outstanding Literacy Work in the Children's Book Division. I sincerely believe your certifying Maxine as a great read helped bring increased social media attention to the book. Thank you for the exposure and the great marketing. We are so happy for Dr. Linda Mubarak that her book, Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read, Maxine's New Job, received this prestigious recognition. We would love to help your book receive that same kind of recognition. If you are interested in having your book considered for our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program, please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can click on the contact button, send us a note, and we'll send all the information back to you, or you can go right to our Certified Great Read page on our website. It's fun, it's easy, and it is really an effective way to let the world know that your book stands out above all the rest. The Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program.
Reading with Your Kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, ciao, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jadley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. Thank you so much for being part of our mission to help families grow closer through reading. A great way to help us is to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Mr. Roses, also known as John Roselli. He is here to celebrate his Children's Success Series. You know something that can help kids and adults experience success? It's grit, that resiliency, that ability to get up after you failed and try again. I have a wonderful book that I'd like you to check out. It's called The Great Maritini. It's my first children's picture book, and it's all about this aspiring, and some would say clumsy, magician. He's always making mistakes on stage, but that doesn't discourage him. He keeps at it, and he is able to learn how to do amazing transformations on stage. But the most wonderful thing about The Great Maritini is that he discovers that the greatest transformation of all is transforming feelings of caring into action to help another human being. Children'sPublishing.com named this one of the top 7 books to help teach kids kindness. The Great Maritini is Story Monsters approved. It's available on Amazon, and you can also find it at readingwithyourkids.com. Joining us right now from Staten Island in the beautiful city of New York. He is here to celebrate his Children's Success Series. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Roses. Mr. Roses, how are you?
Jed, I'm doing good. Thank you, sir, for having me. It's a pleasure.
It is great to have you on. Mr. Roses, in addition to writing the Children's Success Series, also presents at a lot of different schools, and he is joining us right now. He's looking very dapper. Is that a rose in your lapel there, or is it a carnation? I can't quite tell.
It's fake, but it's a rose boutonniere. Okay. It's part of the uniform.
That's great. So why don't you tell us all about the Children's Success Series, please?
Sure, yeah. So let me start off and say that I'm actually not a full-time author. I'm actually an engineer doing this on the side. And I found a passion for reading books. And I read this book by Napoleon Hill, The Law of Success. It was the book for me that opened my mind on these critical lessons on finding your path and your purpose in this life, not really just kind of floating through. And I took all these lessons from this book that really made an impact on me. And I realized if I would have known these lessons when I was younger and I had more time to direct them towards my future, that I would have probably became a writer rather than an engineer. So I wanted to try and teach these critical lessons to the younger kids through a children's book series.
That's really fascinating. I have an engineer in the family, and he's a great guy. I can't ever see him. In fact, I pulled him up on stage one night, and it was probably the most uncomfortable 5 or 6 minutes of his life. So I'm curious where that connect. You don't usually connect engineers with being children's authors and going out and doing school presentations. How did this happen? Has this been a passion of yours that was just kind of lying dormant until you got the bug?
It's funny though, because I would say no. And when I go to school presentations and I tell kids that, their face kind of drops and they're like, "What do you mean? You never thought you were a writer?" And I actually, not until recently, finally accepted the fact that I am a writer. In school, I was just very heavily on the math side of my brain, and I needed to find a break. And for some reason, writing in rhymes really stuck with me, and I was able to create these crazy stories out of nowhere. And I kind of just went off on a tangent on that, so to say, and then tried to organize it around the success series.
That's great. So these lessons that you wish you had learned at a young age, can you share a couple of those with us?
Of course. So in the Children's Success Series, it's actually 5 books, each individual stories, 5 different characters. I've self-published all of them. Let me rephrase that. I've self-published 2 of them fully out in the market. The other 3 I'm just holding off for right now. But for example, the first one is about Skip. He's a soccer player and his dream is becoming a soccer star. So in this book, I'm trying to teach 3 key lessons: creating a dream, setting goals, and using your imagination. So when I go to the school, so in the book Skip, he wants to be the soccer star. So I use that in the class presentations to try and show the kids first having a dream. Then he has a few goals that he tries to do throughout the book, such as going to a soccer game, joining a soccer team. So I try to teach them lessons on setting goals. Then throughout the story, he's usually having dreams about being a soccer star or imagining different things that he would want to be doing. So that's kind of where I tie in the imagination part of creating the dream. And then in the second book, Pip, it's about a bunch of wild kids in the forest. And what I'm trying to teach in this book is about initiative and leadership, problem and solution solving. So in that book, it's about the wild kids. There's a mayor that's cutting down their trees. And the leader of the wild kids, Pip, the main character of the book, has to figure out a way to combat the mayor and do it in the right way. So those are some examples.
Great. It's interesting talking about problem solving. That's one of the things I've learned through talking with different guests here in the Reading with Your Kids podcast, and also talking with a lot of different engineers and scientists on the Solve It for Kids podcast. Problem solving is probably right up there as being one of the most important skills for an engineer or a scientist to have. Am I right in thinking that?
100%. No matter what you do day to day, problems are always going to pop up. So again, also in PIP, I try and teach kids the value of persevering through problem and solution. Through the book, I have many different conflicts that the main character will try a solution and fail at it. And I try to teach these kids that you can either stick with your failures or use them as lessons and then grow past them to find the right solution. So 100% in engineering, you're always going to be running into problems, and even with day-to-day life, no matter what you're doing. So it's a key point that I try to teach the kids about persevering through any obstacle.
Yeah. As you're speaking, I know that this is absolutely a great lesson for kids to have. It's also a really great lesson for parents to hear and embrace, because as we've talked about here on the podcast a lot, there are a lot of parents out there that just love their kids so much, and they can't envision anything bad, anything negative happening to their kids, and they almost bubble wrap their kids. They don't want them to skin a knee. They don't want them to lose. I'm aware of different sports leagues where they don't keep score. Well, the adults don't keep score. The kids keep score. They don't tell anybody. But, so they do everything they can so that the kids don't experience failure. And I think that's I understand where the motivation is coming from, but I think it's a disservice to kids because, as you said, we learn a lot from the mistakes we make and the efforts that we make towards success.
Absolutely. Protecting from danger, even though it makes sense rationally, in the long run, it's a great disservice because eventually that protection is not going to be there. And if you don't have the experience and have gotten through the smaller bumps throughout life, the bigger ones are going to be overwhelming and you're not going to be able to fight through it.
Yeah. One of the things that we've heard from so many of the scientists and engineers and that have been on the show is that whole concept of every mistake, every failure is just another step forward, another step towards finding the solution.
Absolutely. But just the problem with the mindset, because it really depends on how the person looks at it. Mm-hmm. Every failure is absolutely just a stepping stone and a learning experience. It teaches you a way that you're doing it wrong, and it hints you that you have to readjust your approach. And if you don't have that mindset, what it could do is it could shut you down and cause you to become stagnant, and inevitably the problem will overcome and win.
Tell me, this sounds like such a profound moment in your life when you discovered these lessons. What was it like for you? Was it, did you feel like a light bulb go off over your head that we see in cartoons all the time? Did you know at the moment you heard these lessons that, yes, this is going to really change my life? Or was it an awareness that kind of came on gradually?
I would say it's more of an awareness that came on gradually. It's not like the light bulb, of course, it does happen, but instantaneous moments like that, they happen and then they fade away. And it takes consistency of repetition to really make it stick in your brain. So I'm trying to write these books to try and put it in kids' brains, but I'm really trying to advocate the importance of reading, because reading more and more opens up your mind consistently to these types of ideas.
Yeah, that it is right. And I'm thinking that the Children's Success Series would be a really fantastic series for families to read together, no matter what age their kid is, because I think it's, these lessons are just ripe for conversation, and I think that's where that's how humans have learned throughout history. It's they hear the stories. A lot of times we hear people say that people have learned through stories, and that's true. But where the real learning comes in, I think, is those conversations we have after we experience the stories, and we're able to share what I took out of it, and then what Mr. Roses took out of the story, and then kind of, bring those ideas together.
I agree, and it's exactly right, because everyone has their own perspective and intake on whatever they just read or witnessed or watched, and discussion, it's the collision of ideas that make revolutionary ideas. So yes, discussion is very important. Yeah. And back to the point about adults reading the books with the kids, these lessons were geared towards an older crowd. So when I was writing them and when I was learning them myself, I tried to simplify them for children, but they apply to everybody of all ages.
Mm-hmm. And hearing I know there are a lot of parents out there who, I want to get this, but I don't have time to sit down and read those self-help books. They're really kind of big and they're chunky and they're kind of challenging sometimes to pick up on. Maybe this would be a great way for a parent that's looking to do something different in their life, to pick up this book with the intent of reading it with their kids. And maybe once they get a taste of these lessons as they're sharing them with their kids, that might inspire them to go out and pick up something that was written for an adult.
Yeah, I would agree. And even for the kids, at the end of each story, I have two different sections that I call the Mr. Roses sections. One section is reading comprehension questions: who, what, where, when, why, and how. The next section is attention to detail questions. So I'll refer back to a page and ask you what's wrong with this page. So like, for example, one of them is it's talking about the morning, the whole story on that page. And it's even showing the morning, the sun's rising, but in one window, it's the moon and it's nighttime out. So just to train the kids on attention to detail. Mm-hmm. I give them a word search puzzle just for fun, but then at the end, there's the 3 lessons on success that I'm trying to teach in the book with direction on how to start practicing them. So, like, for instance, the first lesson is about a dream and asking the reader what your dream is, and then setting down some goals on how you could achieve that dream, and then using your imagination on what that actually means to you once you finally do achieve your dream to try and envision where you're trying to go.
Wow. That is something I think is such an important lesson. We've talked here on the podcast. I know that I've read studies that show that kids who dream, kids who have goals, do so much better in life. They do better in school as they're young. They're happier. They go further with their education. When I first read that story, I kind of did a very unscientific poll as I was going out. I read the story at the beginning of a week when I was out on tour, and so I was performing at 6 or 7 schools that week. And at each one of the schools, I asked the kids, how many of you kids have a dream? How many of you kids are thinking, when I grow up, I want to do this or I want to do that? And it's okay if that's changed over time. It's okay if you have a dream that was different than yesterday. But just how many of you guys have a dream? And I was shocked and really disappointed that only about half of the kids at each one of those presentations raised their hands. And I'm hearing that's a real problem. There are a lot of kids out there that don't dream for whatever reason.
No, absolutely. Because even when I go to schools and I do the presentations, so when I do my presentations, I have 20-inch by 30-inch printouts of my books, and I set up stands. So I'll read the books to the kids, and then, again, just with the first book, Skip, I'll ask them at the end, like, what was Skip's dreams? What were some of his goals? And how did he use his imagination? And then I would ask them, what is a dream to you? Can you define it? What are goals to you? Can you define it? And then once they answer these questions, I kind of tell them exactly what it is. Mm-hmm. But then I go around and I ask them to make a list. Write down some things that might be your dream that you might want to do, and maybe we'll work out some goals on how you could get there. And most of the times, when I do go around, the kids are sitting there with blank books and, like, they're not sure what to write. They think that I'm trying to ask them a trick question or something along those lines. But it takes a bit of time for me to break down with them. All it is just figuring out what you're interested in. What are your hobbies? What do you like to do? What are you interested in? And then they'll say, I like to play football. Oh, so maybe you want to be a professional football player. So maybe you want to join a Pee Wee football team, or maybe you want to start playing some football with your parents or your brothers. Mm-hmm. And I try and work with them to help understand this process of setting a dream and a goal, because you're absolutely right. People who have dreams and goals go tremendously farther in life, because life is overwhelming. If you're just playing, shooting at your hip, you're never going to get anywhere. You have to have some type of direction that will maybe change over time, like you're saying, per your interests and what's going on in your life. But as long as you have some type of definite direction that you're moving in, whatever is meant to be, you will eventually find through this desire to search. Yeah. But not many people have that desire to search.
Yeah. What a great, fun activity that this could spur with a family, sitting down and having those conversations about your dreams and how are we going to figure what kind of things can we do now that get you on the path to achieving those dreams. That's so much fun, so much more fun than sitting down and just, watching another rerun on TV.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm wondering, where did the persona of Mr. Roses come from?
I don't know, but I also have some ideas. I've had a lot of nicknames throughout my life. My name is John Roselli, and one of my friend's moms always called me Roses. For some reason, that stuck with me. Again, with the roses, my grandmother, her favorite saint is Saint Teresa, and she's a saint of roses. And I knew when I was creating my children's book series that I wanted to make it more fun for them and have some type of intriguing quality about the author. So I ended up creating Mr. Roses. I'm an old school guy. I love wearing the fedora. That's the key to the outfit. And yes, I always wear a suit and I go to the classes. And I think it actually is very beneficial when I'm interacting with the kids, because when I first enter a classroom, it's hysterical to see all the kids' faces. Usually they're petrified and intimidated. But once I start, because they see this man standing there, and then once I walk around and I show them that I'm just a friendly guy trying to have some fun and teach them some stuff along the way, it's amazing how open the kids actually get to me, and I feel like I can make a real connection and teach these kids something.
Yeah. This is exciting. I was just thinking, we've had as I said, we've had a lot of engineers on the show. We've had a lot of engineers who've become authors, but they're all writing books about STEM. I think it's really refreshing and really fascinating that you're taking a different approach. You're creating rhyming books that talk to kids about success and teaching them life lessons that they're going to need, whether they're entering the STEM fields or entering teaching or whatever it is that they want to do with their lives.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. I know that you have a great website. Let everybody know where they can go to find out more about your series and also find out more about Mr. Roses.
Of course. The website is houseofroses.org. But you could also find me on Instagram and YouTube as Mr. Roses _HR for House Roses. Outside of the children's book, I make a lot of inspirational videos trying to teach these different lessons and mindsets in different creative ways. My main goal is to really try to motivate the future generations, but the children's books are for kids, and then the videos are maybe for adults or teens in that type of range.
Mm-hmm. And we can find your videos on YouTube?
Yes, YouTube, Instagram, just Mr.Roses _HR for House Roses.
Absolutely.
But all the links are on my website, houseofroses.org.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of the Children's Success Series, Mr. Roses. Hey, Mr. Roses, thanks so much for being with us today.
Chad, it's been a pleasure on the podcast. I've had a lot of fun.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Mark Binder. Mark is the author of the Groston Rules. He's also a master storyteller. You're not going to want to miss this. It's a really, really fun episode. He has a fantastic voice. I'm so jealous of his voice. That's the next episode of the podcast. If you are the author of a fantastic children's book, we would love to have you as a guest on the podcast. Being a guest, it's fun. It's easy. It gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your fantastic children's book, and it doesn't cost a thing. You don't have to pay anybody to facilitate your visit. All you need to do is to go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the author's Click Here button at the top of the page, scroll on down to where it says Be a Guest. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, want to thank our guest, Mr. Roses. Be sure to check out his Children's Success Series. Also want to thank my team, Alejandro Doherty, Fatima Khan, Alexia Brown, Hannah Pat Oboyski. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. I want to thank Augie the doggy for having my back here in the studio. Most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.